Hello everyone, I'm Broughy1322 and this video is going to show the fastest fully upgraded sports cars in terms of lap time. We're quickly going to go over the slowest vehicles right now, and as always the position counter is in the top left with the best lap time the car achieved in the top right. This video only focuses on track performance, so if you're interested in top speed where braking, cornering and acceleration aren't relevant, check the link in the description for the top speed testing series. And if you want to know more information about this testing, including the extent to which it's accurate and how useful it is for you personally, have a read of the full description as everything that you need is in there. This video lists all cars and is correct as of the Super Sport Series update. For vehicles added after that or other classes of cars, check the playlist linked in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon if you want to get these tested results a few days before these videos go up every Thursday. So, the sports class. The quintessential class of a vehicle misallocation, I guess you could say at this point. It all started with the Blister Compact, where we have the regular Blister in the Compacts class, but the Blister Compact was for some reason put into the sports class, and then since then we've had just an incredible number of vehicles added to the sports class to make it easily the largest class in the entire game. 56 vehicles are in the sports class. Unbelievable that a class could have so many vehicles, and ultimately in the end 55 of them in most regular races outside of a racing crew are completely useless for a racing situation, but we'll come on to that. So yeah, when you look at all of these vehicles as we go through, obviously, you know, with 56 vehicles, we're quickly going through a lot of them until we get to sort of 20th place when things will slow down a lot more. This area right now where we're in at this point, the 1:08 lap time area and 1:07 lap time area as well, is actually really interesting because there's a lot of cars around this area that are really close together, and you can get some, if you were to just have these cars in races, you would get some really good races to them. It's just that because they're just at the bottom end of the sports class, nobody ever uses them, but they're all very interesting cars that are all on similar pace and all have different characteristics to each other. If they were just in their own class, like a Sport B or slower sports or something like that, or just anything really, they would be a really interesting class because they're all so close in terms of lap time, as you're seeing, tenths of seconds between each of these cars around this area. But as we go through this video, you'll see so many cars that could be put into other classes as we have them right now, and that's not even just from a pace perspective, a lap time perspective. That's from a looks perspective and just how the car is. You could quite easily, the Blister Compact is a perfect example that it should be in the compacts class, but there's so many other vehicles like that. And then when you add into it the pace perspective as well, for example, the two Buffaloes are right on that sort of mid to top pace in the muscle cars class. And then there's also plenty of vehicles that could do with being in their own brand new class. For example, a rally class would be pretty good, and we're seeing the sort of the rally subclass within the sports class here. We got the Comet Safari, the GP200. We'll also be seeing the Tropos Rally and the Omnis, the Kuruma, the Sultan. All those vehicles are what you would consider, along with the Sentinel Classic as well, are all what you consider to be the sort of the rally subclass. So if you're doing rally cross races or regular rally races in GTA in the sports class, these are the kind of vehicles that you want to limit yourself to if you're playing with friends, because they're all very close in terms of pace, and some of the sort of the lower end in terms of lap time on a track are actually really good in terms of off-road capabilities. So every car has an inbuilt off-road traction loss statistic. Most cars have that off-road traction loss statistic being a value of 1, which is basically means standard. And then you've got some vehicles like the Tropos Rally, the Omnis, things like that, the Comet Safari, which have values, the Kuruma is one of them as well, around 0.3, 0.2, even a value of 0, which makes them comparatively better off-road than what they are on-road. So that rally subclass is very interesting, and it could do with just having its own rally class, but you'll notice that I don't mention the brand new Flash GT as part of that off-road rally rally subclass, and that's because pretty much it's too quick, as we'll see later on in the video. So the Flash GT would be excluded from that rally subclass in the sports class of vehicles. Again, we're getting to a point here as we're coming up to sort of the 20th place of, again, a lot of interesting sports class vehicles. And I really wish the Alpha was in coupes, by the way. I would do so many more coupe races if I could use the Alpha in that. But a lot of vehicles around this 1:05 lap time, 1:06 lap time, they're again all very close together, only a few tenths of a second between them all. I just want to mention, because this is kind of standard knowledge at this point, but I'm not sure that, you know, there might be new people coming to these videos. You do need to have an aftermarket spoiler on every single vehicle in GTA. So if there is a spoiler option, then you need to add anything that isn't the topmost spot. So for example, on the Omnis, you can, the stock spoiler doesn't give you any extra traction, but the second option in the list, which is actually removing the spoiler, does give you extra traction. So anything that isn't the topmost option in a spoiler category will give you extra traction, and you need to add that to be able to get the best lap times and the best cornering speeds from it. But yeah, a lot of the vehicles around here, this 1:05 lap time, again, very, very close together. There's a lot of vehicles in the sports class that could be divided up into subclasses where they will be competitive with each other. And as we come into the top 20, that is shown here as well. We're going to see not much of an improvement in terms of lap time from the next few vehicles, and it's only really sort of the bottom end and the top end where you see, you know, such huge differences in terms of lap time. For example, the Blister Compact way down there at the bottom has no real reason to be in this class, and then the top vehicle, which we'll see at the end of the video. But within that, there's sort of these subgroups that are all so close together, and again, because of the top vehicles being so much better, then there's never really any reason to use these in regular races outside of, you know, organized racing crews. And that's one of the benefits of being in a racing crew, is that you get the ability to use vehicles that are rarely used, because races are sometimes restricted to a certain set of vehicles. But for normal circumstances, whether it's regular stunt races with sports cars or just regular races in general in GTA, you know, in terms of the regular population, there's just no real reason to use any of these when there are so much more dominant vehicles at the top of the class, despite the fact that they're all very interesting cars. You know, it's great that we have so many cars in the game. You know, there's a lot of vehicles that are very interesting vehicles to use. They've all got various different handling characteristics. For example, the Spectre Custom that we've just seen is very different to the Revolter that we've got here, but they're so close in terms of lap time. And that's the good thing, you know, you want lots of different vehicles, even the vehicles down the bottom end of the sports class. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be in the game, it's just that really they shouldn't be put in the sports class. There's plenty of better places for them, and really the game badly needs more classes, because having 56 classes in a single, having 56 vehicles I should say, in a single class is absolutely ridiculous. So we've got the two 9Fs here in 13th and 12th places. They're basically exactly the same. It's just one has a soft top, one has a hard top. In terms of lap time difference, you know, it's barely any difference. And then in 11th place, just missing out on the top 10, we have the newest vehicle to the sports class. It is the Flash GT. So the Flash GT is actually very quick, and it's the quickest vehicle that doesn't have an off-road traction loss of 1, as I was talking about earlier. And this is why it's not part of that rally subclass, because it is completely dominant in an off-road situation in comparison to the other rally cars such as the Omnis, the Tropos, the Kuruma, all that kind of stuff. So the Flash GT does suffer from the new handling flags that we've seen that have been affecting the vehicles from the Super Sport Series update. So in a bumpy situation, you know, that does hamper it a little bit, but even with that, it is still very quick. Just missing out on the top 10 obviously to the regular Massacro here, and we'll have the Massacro race car in 9th place as well. So two of the older vehicles still able to make it into that top 10 list for this huge class now. But yeah, the Flash GT is a very competent vehicle off-road, and it remains to be seen whether, you know, the ultimate speed, just the general advantage that sort of the top vehicles have in terms of speed overall would overcome how good the Flash GT is off-road. But it's, you know, it's right up there for being one of the quickest vehicles in an off-road situation overall in the entire game. So that's you know, it is a very competent vehicle in an off-road situation, but ultimately in terms of lap time, it's for the sports class pretty bog standard for, you know, the sort of the level of lap time that you would expect, or what we used to have from sports cars. So we saw the Jester there in 8th place, again another older vehicle still able to keep it into that top 10 for the sports class, and then we got a somewhat newer vehicle here with the LG Retro Custom. This has very good cornering capabilities, the LG Retro Custom, but its top speed is definitely very much lacking. And like I said, we will see the top speed video for all of these vehicles next Thursday, or if you're watching this later on, you can check the description for the playlist, which will give you all the information that you need for top speed, and you can see how these vehicles do in a straight line. Just a race car gets up into 6th place, just missing out on the top 5, 103.3, so we're getting those lap times down quite a lot now. This is kind of the top end of the sports class, or what used to be the top end of the sports class before some newer vehicles have come out, which we'll see. But then in 5th place, just making it into that top 5, is the Neon. The Neon is a very interesting vehicle because obviously it's an electric vehicle, so it gets a 103.2 in terms of lap time, which is, you know, a little bit quicker than the Jester race car, but it's got incredible acceleration. So it's a very good vehicle to use if you don't know the track very well, or if you feel like your skills in terms of getting the most out of the corners or racing in general isn't quite up to par, because that acceleration will save you a lot of the time. In 4th place, we've got an OG vehicle, a vehicle that was in the game when the game was first released, of the Feltzer, with a 103.229, so almost exactly the same lap time as what we saw from the Neon, but they get their lap times in very different ways. The Feltzer is very good in terms of cornering ability, not too bad in terms of acceleration, better than the Neon in terms of top speed, but certainly lacking behind the Neon in terms of acceleration. But yeah, it's good to see an original vehicle up so high, and that goes for the LG RH8 as well. For a long time, this was the reigning king of the sport class. It was undefeated for years and years. It was in the game when the game first came out. It's a free vehicle. It's the perfect vehicle to start off, I guess, if you really do need a sports car, although the Feltzer is much easier to drive and it only costs around 100k. But a 102.5, obviously it's a significant amount quicker than the Feltzer. It was undoubtedly the best one to have all of the time. A little bit difficult to drive, but its incredible traction just made it just incredibly quick around a track. But there are 2 vehicles now that have overtaken it for the top spots. First up is the Comet SR. Now this gets a lap time of 1 minute 1.9, so it's only half a second quicker than the Elegy. So you know that's not an awful lot of lap time really. They are relatively close in terms of pace and performance. And the Comet SR, although it's very quick, it's not, you know, a huge amount quicker than the Elegy, such that you couldn't use the Elegy to beat the Comet, for example. But ultimately it does fall into 2nd place, but it is a very standard 2nd place in comparison to our number 1 vehicle, which is ultimately so dominant, more so than what the Elegy ever was. It's the Pariah. At this point, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already for new testing videos every Thursday, and update videos when new cars are released, and check out other classes in the playlist. The Pariah gets a lap time of 1 minute 0.828. So if you thought breaking that 1 minute 2 barrier from the Comet SR was quick, the Pariah is even quicker, getting under a 1 minute 1 lap time, which would put it pretty much into the top 10 vehicles for the supercars class. That's how quick this is. This is quicker than Zentornos, Osiris, T20. All those kind of vehicles have slower lap times than the Pariah. It's just a ridiculous car, and its performance is absolutely insane for the sports cars class. Like I said, this is more dominant now than the Elegy ever was at during its reign at the top. Obviously the Elegy and the Feltzer have always been as close as what you see in this video. There's only a few tenths of a second between them, whereas the Pariah is a full second quicker than the next best of the Comet SR. And when we see it's the top speed testing video next week, it's obviously no contest there either. in almost 99.9% of situations, you don't need any other vehicle other than the Pariah for sports car races, and that's just outside of a racing community where you're going to be limiting the use of the Pariah, for example. But yeah, it is insane. So the reason that I'm putting these comparisons at the end here, and we'll see basically first of all the Pariah versus the Lynx, and then later on we'll see the Pariah versus the Blister Compact. And the reason that I'm doing this one first of all is because of the price difference. Now, the Pariah and the Lynx are both made by Ocelot. The Pariah is 1.5 million, there or thereabouts. The Lynx is actually more expensive, and the Lynx is the most expensive vehicle in the sports cars class at $1.735 million. And as you can see, the comparison between these two cars is ridiculous. The Lynx is way down in 34th place for the class. It's about 6 or 7 seconds per lap slower. And just when you keeping that in mind of that price difference between the two vehicles, and the fact that the Lynx is such a slow vehicle and is so overpriced for what it is, it's absolutely crazy. But then obviously we've got the comparison as well between the Pariah and the Blister Compact, just to kind of underline how ridiculous it is that the Blister Compact is even in this class. I have no problems with the Blister Compact as a car. The Blister Compact should definitely be a car in this game, but how it can possibly be in any thought in this sports class when you have the regular Blister in the compact class, but the Blister Compact isn't in the compact class, that makes no sense to me. From a pace perspective and lap time perspective, it makes no sense to me, and it has for a long time been the #1 class misallocation in the entire game. Now there's been so many since then, but that was really the one that started it, and it just goes to show that such a gulf in performance from #1 to number 56 in this really oversized sports class now, it's pretty ridiculous at this point. And the game, like I said earlier, does badly need many more classes to further make these cars more usable and more interesting, and just making them more worthwhile to have. But ultimately, out of these 56 cars, 55 of them are completely useless because the Pariah is the ultimate #1. So that's pretty much it for this video. Remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed it, found it helpful, subscribe for more, and consider supporting on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.